So, I was having a little healthy hip hop debate this morning, and I was talking to people that seemed to be very excited about the prospect of Kendrick versus Lil Wayne. And not only because, it'd be a good battle, but this idea that Kendrick is just going to get completely washed by Wayne if they were to go bar for bar. Like, Drake was one thing, Wayne is a whole nother beast. Kendrick just need to leave that alone or he's going to get destroyed. And I compared that line of thinking to the excitement that some people had about Mike Tyson potentially destroying Jake Paul during that Netflix fight. Now, we did get fooled by a few little 30-second clips from Mike recently training right before the fight. But I think a lot of people's excitement and this idea that Mike was just going to come in and demolish Jake Paul came from how people saw him 3 decades ago. And after the fight, people had to come to the realization that the Mike Tyson of 2024 is not the Mike Tyson from the late 80s into the 90s. And I think people are going to have to come to that realization if a battle between Wayne and Kendrick happens, because the Lil Wayne of 2024 is not the Lil Wayne from over a decade ago when he was in his prime. But before I get any further into my thoughts on that, it's your boy Vinny Dangerous. This is another episode of 1430. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and leave a comment, because I feel like this is one of the videos that, people might have some strong opinions on. So let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. I'd really appreciate it. Now, back to why I feel this way. Honestly, let's take it back to the beginning, because I feel like this is a video that's been a long time coming for me. Not only after the Super Bowl performer was announced for the halftime show, and people were, let's just say, a little upset when they found out that it was Kendrick Lamar performing at the Super Bowl halftime show and not Lil Wayne. And there was a lot of heated discourse on the people who felt like Lil Wayne should have got it, or that Kendrick was more deserving for the spot than Wayne is right now. And I thought about doing a video then. I was still on my little hiatus, and I thought about coming out to do a video on that. But I didn't want to add to that conversation. I didn't like that people were, shitting on Kendrick, just trying to discredit all of his accomplishments, and, just because they're upset that Wayne wasn't picked. And, the fact that it's in New Orleans and people for some reason feel like that's just how the Super Bowl does it, that they pick somebody from the hometown just because they did it that one time in LA with Dr. Dre. And Wayne has been very vocal about wanting it, so I can understand his fans being upset. Not only his fans, but his team. Birdman and especially Nicki Minaj came out really hard about this whole Wayne Super Bowl perceived snub situation. But I also didn't want to shit on Wayne. Outside of a few instances that really made me question if I really wanted to be a fan of Wayne, like his BLM comments.
My life matter, especially to my I don't know what racism is.
His continuing support of police. I understand a police officer saved him when he shot himself when he was 14 years old. But, in the time since, and especially with his own legal troubles, as well as a lot of really fucked up stuff, his continuous support for police in the way that he's gone about it is a little weird. And it's the Trump thing, but I think he just needed somebody to bail him out of jail, to be honest. So I don't even really count that one the same as I may do Amber Rose or, I don't know, Sleepy Hollow or something. But, outside of those incidences, I don't really have a problem with Lil Wayne. I was a fan of Lil Wayne, even going beyond his prime years. I'm from the South. I love the Hot Boys. I have an affinity for early Cash Money. And of course, when he hit his stride in the mid to late 2000s, of course, I'm going to be a huge fan of that as well. So I didn't want to kick another legend when he was down to prop up, Kendrick, or to defend Kendrick's spot. I didn't want to do that. So I stayed out of it. And then again, I felt some type of way when Wayne finally did speak up about how he felt. And like, I understand being disappointed. I understand it's a very human thing to feel like this thing that I worked for and the thing that I just really want and I dreamed of, a thing that like is as accomplished as Wayne's career is, like that would be like the rubber stamp and like just solidify his legacy in his mind. For that moment to be taken away from him, I can understand that. Like you don't have to be a superstar. Like anybody can understand working hard for something, and when the opportunity presents itself, you don't get it. You get passed up for it, and you're hurt. You're hurt. It's a very human response to be hurt by it. But I thought it was so weird that he never congratulated Kendrick. Not only because it's a fellow artist, a fellow hip hop artist. Hey, you might not have got the spot, but like he got it. Like at least show some love. It's a good sportsman thing to do. But also because of how vocal Kendrick has always been about being a fan of Lil Wayne. He's been very like open about how Wayne inspired him. Even in this verse, he mentioned bumping the Carter 3, holding his rolly chain proud. And it wasn't even a diss. Like he mentioned Wayne, but he wasn't really a diss. He just said that, his hard work let Lil Wayne down. And considering all of the bitching and moaning that Wayne has been doing the last few weeks and taking Kendrick's biggest moment and making it about himself, he could have went a lot harder, but he just spoke from a place of hurt. Like imagine somebody that you have such an affinity for, somebody that inspired you to be in the position you're in to be able to perform at the Super Bowl. And, one of your heroes doesn't even give you your props. Like in a moment where that just would have been like the sportly thing to do, like the right thing to do in a lot of sense, and that's coming from a hero like that. I know that's got a sting for Kendrick. But even in that, I said, I'm not even gonna talk about it. Cause hey, it was just that one video. It wasn't that long. And maybe in that moment, he's still like emotional. He's not thinking clearly. I'm still giving Wayne out. All right. I'm still not trying to like shit on him too bad. I think it really rubbed me the wrong way that at Louisiana Fest that happened just a few weeks ago at this point, and everybody, the city came out, they had the Hot Boys reunion, Master P, and I think the mayor of New Orleans came out and, presented him the key to the city. They gave him the key to the city. They gave him 2 days, Lil Wayne days. And they're going to have a celebration of, giving him his star on the Walk of Fame that they're doing in New Orleans. Like, him and a few other like notable figures from the city are going to get highlighted. And it's all going to happen around Super Bowl. So it's almost like, your kid didn't make the football team. So everybody is just coming together to, try to do our best to make you feel better. Like maybe we're going to, throw a party for you, or maybe take you to a game, like take you to a professional game, even though you didn't make the high school or the middle school team or something. Like they're basically bending over backwards to try to make up for, not only make up for him not getting the Super Bowl spot, but also just give him his props, give him his flowers while he can still smell them, and show appreciation for everything that he's done for New Orleans. And even in that moment, after receiving all of that love and them flowers, he still gets on the mic and continues to cry about not getting the Super Bowl performance spot. And that was when I think all of my excuses, all of the outs that I was willing to give, Wayne, because he's human. And human, it's very human to be disappointed when, something you really want, just doesn't happen. I think at that point, that's when I was fed up. Because now at this point, it's been months. You still haven't congratulated Kendrick. In the song, Whacked Out Murals, he said that Nas was the only one that congratulated him. And, the fact that, that was his other, I guess you could say GOAT, like other person that he looked at with such affinity. It was, it was just kind of like telling to me. Like it's like you can see the difference between how a Nas will respond to something like that. Somebody who also has never performed at the Super Bowl, I don't know if Nas even cares about it, but it's a spot that he's never had, but he's willing to look past that, even if that's something he wants, and just show love to a colleague, a fellow artist, and give them their props. Just I don't know. It drudged up a lot of these feelings that I had, especially seeing people just tout all this stuff about Wayne and like how Kendrick don't want it. And, for like Lil Wayne to respond in an X post and basically like for one feign ignorance. Like he didn't bitch about this whole situation for weeks, months at this point. To act like, what did I do? I just be minding my business. Like, nigga, come on. Like, it's one thing to be disappointed. It's one thing to be hurt. It's one thing to not want to be mentioned in the song. And the warning, don't wake the sleeping giant. That's one thing. But to feign ignorance after all of the bitching and moaning you've done the last few months, like, stop it. Now you're trying to play. Now you're trying to play in everybody's face. Now you throw stones and hide your hands. That's not cool, man. And it's really disappointing to see that coming from a legend like Wayne. Like he sounds like a petulant child. And if we're just being completely honest, like these are my genuine feelings on the decision not to pick Lil Wayne. When they announced it after the Super Bowl this year that it was going to be in New Orleans, I, like a lot of people, was like, yo, it would be really dope to see Wayne up there. Like, if the Hot Boys reunion didn't happen at Louisiana Fest and they were saving it for the Super Bowl, that would have been amazing, right? So I'm with it. Now, mind you, this is before Drake versus Kendrick takes off. This is before Not Like Us just blows the fuck up. I was like, yeah, why not? But it's a very bad sign when the conversation happens where Wayne fans are like, yo, it should have been Wayne. Kendrick, like, shouldn't have had that spot. And people just respond with clips of terrible recent performances. Not from 10 years ago, not from when Wayne was in his prime, but like from this year and last year. Like, I'm a wrestling fan. I can't remember if it was this year's WrestleMania or last year's WrestleMania. But it was one of those WrestleManias where Wayne was there and he was performing and it was terrible. Now, he was just walking down the aisle. He was just performing a song while accompanying another wrestler to the ring. So it wasn't like a big deal. Like, it wasn't a big production. But it was terrible. He was incoherent. Like, he didn't sound like he was on beat. His energy was terrible. And this is the stuff that people look at when trying to decide who's going to perform at the Super Bowl. And it's a bad sign when, like, people could drudge up just a bunch of stuff from TikTok, from YouTube, from Instagram, from everywhere. And it's like recent Wayne performances where he is terrible, needing a teleprompter because he can't remember his lyrics. Either you can't remember them or you didn't, like, care enough to rehearse and memorize these, lyrics so you know what you're doing and know what you're saying on the stage. Like, as a performer, even songs that I've done recently, I have to, rehearse. I have to make sure that I know what I'm doing. And I'm nowhere near to, performing in front of the amount of people that Wayne is. But I understand the discipline that needs to go into a situation, even at my level. So, to expect to just kind of bullshit your way through these huge performances and opportunities where like tens to hundreds of thousands of people are going to be in the crowd and millions are going to be watching. Yeah, I could see where people who are in charge of putting together the Super Bowl performance and picking who's going to have that spot at the halftime show, Rock Nation and, the NFL commissioner, I can understand them looking at something like that and going like, nah, we can't put our faith, we can't invest in a guy like that. And he's very open about his health and his struggles with addiction and stuff like that. Like, I saw somebody, that I was talking to, they were trying to say that, like, hey, Wayne doesn't really need to be that healthy to perform because, he'll have guests out there. He'll have Nicki, he'll have Wayne, he'll have maybe the Hot Boys. Wayne has been very vocal about saying that, like, he don't want nobody on stage with him. if he was to perform in the Super Bowl. Like that's his moment, that's his spot. So he already in his mind of like, I'm gonna be doing this solo. So that's Wayne's thinking right now. That's his words. But on top of that, if you're the NFL, this big conglomerate, like this big corporation, this big like institution, and the Super Bowl is the biggest game, the biggest night of the year for you. Why am I going to bend over backwards to make all these accommodations for a performer that barely cares enough in a lot of maybe not as big but similarly big situations and performances? They don't even care enough to rehearse and try to memorize their music and their set list that they're performing before they get on stage. And then you're like, I'm gonna pick that guy and have all these smoke and mirrors and make all these accommodations for them, versus a guy that not only is having this incredible year that he's having where there's like so much attention and so many eyes on him by every move that he makes, but also like the guy that just came off of, I want to say one of, if not the highest grossing tour of a solo hip hop artist. And that is, proven that the pop out is conditioned, he's ready, and he's reliable. I mean, there's also like, conversations about how, Wayne would show up to, performances late, wouldn't show up to rehearsals. People couldn't find him in certain spots. Like, people look at a lot of that stuff. Like, the NFL is going to be looking at that. Like, Rock Nation being in charge of the Super Bowl performance, like, picking the talent, like, they're going to be looking at stuff like that. There's, like, these are the factors that people aren't really taking into account. And, like, I mentioned it before, like, Birdman being, coming at Jay so hard. And Jay was the one that, bailed out Wayne pretty much out of his tax debt. You could say that he did it out of the kindness of his heart or his relationship with Wayne. You could say that he did it as like a power play or a chess move. For whatever reason, he did it, and it was partly caused by Birdman. So for Birdman to go so hard at Jay seemed really weird. Or maybe not weird, it just seems a little ironic in retrospect. And like, these are the kind of factors that go into this stuff. And like, I'll say it again, like, not only on stage, musically, and I know it's not a recency thing. Like, everybody that performs at the Super Bowl isn't like in their prime, isn't on top of their game or on top of the charts. But like, the fact that Wayne has been on this steady decline as an artist for years now. Like, we have Arrested Development thinking about Wayne from when he was doing the No Ceilings mixtapes. He was doing the Drought mixtapes. He was doing the Carter 2, 3. The legendary feature run he was on. That was during a period of time that's not only a decade ago, but it was really because he was the only one. Like, I always, and this is probably, my most controversial take in this video. Like, when people were calling Wayne the greatest of all time, I pushed back on that heavy. Even as a fan. Like, even as somebody that really enjoyed the run that Wayne was on, like, as a fan, I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. But to call him the greatest, it's like a, this new pizza shop comes, or not even this new pizza shop, but like, there's this pizza shop in the city, right? And you think it's really good, but everybody that goes there says that it's the greatest pizza they've ever had, or it's the greatest pizza of all time. And I'm like, it's good. I've had better pizza. That's where I was at when it came to Wayne during his period of time. And one of the reasons why I felt that way, not only because there were other rappers that I looked at, they may not have been as popular, or they may not have been as high profile as, Wayne is as far as mainstream goes. But I felt like there were other better rappers. There was like Lupe Fiasco, for one. Like, in the mainstream, like, Wayne didn't have any competition. Like, when you think about the 90s, you think about the 2000s, there's like 5, 6, 7 rappers that were out around those times, that you could look at and go, they could be the best, or they could be perceived as the best rapper. Like, during that period of time, I think I said 2005 to, if we're going to really stretch it, 2005 to like maybe 2011. I always say 2005 to 2009, But all right, we'll give him 2011. Wayne was literally the only one, like on a mainstream level. Like the only competition he might have had was Kanye, and Kanye is automatically disqualified because he's not really the best rapper, but he also had writers. He also had people that wrote for him. You know, kids back in the day, if you had writers, you were automatically disqualified from the GOAT conversation. I mean, you could still make music. Nobody said you couldn't be a rapper. You know, Diddy, Dre, Jermaine Dupri. There's a history of this. I mean, NWA outside of Ice Cube, they all had writers. So you could make music before. We're not saying that you can't be a rapper. You just couldn't be the best. You couldn't be the GOAT. And the issue only came when you deceived the people and had somebody writing your stuff, but you passing it off like your own. That's where the term ghostwriter comes from. So I'm saying that to say, like, Kanye was already disqualified from that conversation. He was probably the only other person that was putting up the numbers he was putting up, had the impact and the cultural relevance as a Wayne, but he didn't write his own rhymes. And T could have been there when he was on his run from like King to T.I. versus T.I.P. He was massively popular, especially during the King album cycle. He was definitely like considered one of the best. But then he got hemmed up, legal issues. You know, he went to jail, and then when he came out of jail, it just wasn't the same. He still had hits. He still had, a few good albums like Paper Trail and Trouble Man, but it just wasn't on the same level. And like some people would say Rick Ross, but I mean, come on, Rick Ross was never a better rapper than Lil Wayne. So there was really nobody on a mainstream level. Like anybody that could have been was either having their own legal issues, label issues, or when they did drop, it just didn't hit the same. Like Jay, the only album he had that was pretty much universally loved around that time, after his first retirement, was American Gangster. I do say that Blueprint 3 is a little underrated. Like, it's not like the greatest thing in the world, but it has a way more hit than miss ratio, in my opinion. But I mean, like, Kingdom Come and then Magna Carta Holy Grail are just awful. And even the stuff that I liked still wasn't hitting the same stride as like the Blueprint or the Black Album. So, Jay is not hitting on all cylinders. And anybody else like a Joel Santana or, a Fabulous or, I don't know, like a Jada. There's like a lot of people that could have been in that spot that for one reason or another just wasn't given the spotlight. Whether contractually or legally or, whatever it was. Wayne was literally like on a mountain to his own. And by the time people like Drake, Cole, Kendrick, Wale, even a Big Sean, like people call him corny now, but around that time, they were killing it. By the time they came in, and a Nicki, like, Wayne took a step back. Whether it was because of his issues with Birdman, like I mentioned before, or he was prioritizing Wayne, Drake and Nicki. He was, and the rest of Young Money, he was prioritizing that. He took more of a step back. So his prime, he was completely unmatched. And I don't want to, I'm not saying that to take away from his talent. Like I'm gonna say it before, I'm gonna say it again because I don't want to come off like a hater. I was a Wayne fan at one point. I think I stopped really being a fan after his BLM comments. I'm not, I know every rapper doesn't have to be political, but after you say Black Lives Matter, my life matters, especially to my bitches, and like be so dismissive to, something that was sparked because a little black boy was killed in Ferguson, Missouri. I think I continued to listen. Oh, and then the Emmett Till bar with, that he had with that song with Future. Yeah, I think those happened around the same time, and I don't think I really listened to Wayne the same way, or at least with the same affinity after that. But you know what? I'm rambling. I am just going to end it off with this. Wayne, you're not ready for the Super Bowl. You are talented, but you are not healthy. You are not disciplined. You are not where you would need to be on a stage like that. You can get back there, though. You just need to take care of yourself. You need to kick the lean. You need to get back in the gym. You need to, work on your skills as an artist and a performer. And maybe it won't be at the Super Bowl in New Orleans, but it can happen at a Super Bowl. But all the bitching, all the entitlement, all of this coming from a legend like you is just pretty sad. It's pretty sad to see. Especially, somebody, at the detriment of somebody who is, that looks up to you like a hero. Like I said earlier, we can all understand the feeling of working hard for something and not getting it. But I think it's also the mature thing to take a step back and, ask yourself, is it a conspiracy? Is somebody, going behind my back, to snatch something from me that I rightfully earned and I'm the best choice for it? Or maybe I just wasn't the best option. Or maybe I wasn't the right one for that opportunity. You have to ask yourself, because if you were asking me, I think it was more the former, or more the latter than the former. But that's my time. That's my feelings on this situation. But until next time, it's your boy Vinny Dangerous. This has been 1430. Much love.